Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and it is very important to cover your sewing machine when you're not using it. We create enough dust with the fabric and the thread as we're sewing. The extra dust from every day, well, we really don't need it in the machines. But a cover is very easy to make, and you can customize a cover to match any machine at all. And I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to make a cover for your own machine. Now I'm going to make a cover for my little featherweight. It fits better in the camera, so you're going to be able to see it. But the theory will be the same for any machine at all. Any large sewing machine, small sewing machine, even sergers. Now because I'm covering a vintage machine, I'm going to use this vintage looking fabric. It's not vintage, it's a new fabric from Timeless, but I'm pretty sure I have that thread and those dresses in patterns. But I'm going to coordinate it with two bright colors. And because I'm using such high contrasts, I'm going to want to have thread that is matching all three colors. Just in case I'm going to want to top stitch, it's good to have thread to match. And I have a very fun fabric that I'm going to put as the lining. To make the cover, you're going to need some kind of a marking pencil and some kind of a firm ruler or piece of plastic. You can use your cutting rulers, and you're going to need a box. The reason I use a box is because I don't have to worry about holding it upright. If it was just a piece of paper, I would have to somehow hold that paper up while I was to draw a template. So get a box that will stand up on its own. The size of the box you're going to need depends on the size of the machine. You're going to take the measurement on the side where the wheel is at, because that is normally the larger side of every machine. The other thing you're going to want to take into consideration, are you going to leave your spool on your machine when you're going to have it covered? Because sometimes that's going to take up a little bit more space. So I'm going to leave my spool on that I normally use, and then from there I'm going to be able to get the proper measurement. So my box is going to have to completely cover this side. And to know that you have the right size of the box, you must have a little bit showing all the way around the outside. The next is going to be marking key areas that you're going to need and keeping it as straight as I can, and usually your eye is enough. I'm going to be able to mark my box. Now, if you find that your box is moving still, even though it's sitting on its own, you can actually take this and push it right against a wall. So the box is firm against the wall and the machine is pushing against the box, and that way the box won't move. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler or whatever you have that's hard plastic, and you're going to go all the way around the outside, making marks as you go. So here is the shape of my machine, and I know that's going to be my bottom. What I need to do now is to straighten this up, and I need to add a little bit extra space because you don't want the cover so tight that it's not going to fit on easily. I like to add 1 inch on each side. And now I have my inch all the way around. I'm going to cut it out so that this piece will become a template. And now my template is finished. Now you can hold it up to the machine and decide if this is the size you want. Do you want to go bigger or do you want to go smaller? The only thing you're going to have to keep into consideration is your seam allowance. And when you have the template exactly the way you want it, right in front, back, sides, just to keep you in line when you go to cut your fabric out. Because this template is not only for this side, it's going to be for this side. The next thing is going to be, how long do you want the cover? If you have a machine that folds up, are you going to keep it stored with the arm up? Or are you going to keep it with the arm down? A lot of times you will have a large embroidery unit here. So are you going to leave the unit on, or are you going to take it off? I like to store it with the arm up. So it's going to be a cute little cover. Then from there, I just need to measure the longest distance from your template to the edge of the machine. So I'm going to take a hard ruler and I'm going to be able to put it right against the machine and I'll know exactly what size I want. Again, you're going to need to add a little bit of space so that the cover is not too tight and you have room for the seam allowance. So my length is going to be 12 inches. At this point, I write the length that I want on my template. Now to make it a lot easier to sew, take the square corners and round them off because you're going to sew all in one continuous seam. Now I need to know the measurement that's going to go all the way around. So to measure, you're just going to take your tape measure and you're going to measure the outside. And because this has been cardboard, you're going to be able to just bend that tape measure all the way around so that you can measure until you get to that corner. All the measurements you need are now done. You have the template for both sides, you have the measurement on how long the machine is, and you have this measurement that goes around the machine. The next thing I like to do is use a product that it looks like a foam with a lightweight fabric on each side. One is made by Fairfield and it's called Support. And it is foam, so it's going to hold its shape. Now you can use quilt batting if you want, but this is going to hold more of its shape. So it will be a little bit firmer. And from this, you are going to need to cut 2 pieces, which is the 2 sides. I've used my template and I have just drawn it and now I can cut that out. So I have both the sides cut out. Now I need to cut the piece that is going to go around the machine. And I'm going to use the measurement that we already measured. So that measurement is going to be that piece that goes around the machine and it's going to match to the edge here. The next would be to decide how you want the cover to look. You can actually quilt the entire thing with different quilt squares. You can use striped fabric. Because this is now one big piece of foam, you're able to put whatever design you want on it. So I'm going to do a 5-inch stripe all the way around, and then the top half will have another fabric, but you can decide on any fabric you want. So by just using that support, you're going to be able to sew whatever you want on to make the cover. Now this is going to be the piece that goes around. Now you can sew them all together first, or you can stitch right onto the foam. Once I have the fabric the way I want on the front, I want to attach the lining fabric with just a couple of rows of stitching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quilt these 2 layers together. That way when the cover is on the machine, the lining stays up onto the top. It won't sag down. You can do as much quilting or as little quilting as you'd like. And once the front and the back have been quilted on, do a zigzag all the way around, holding the 3 layers together. And that zigzag is going to take those 3 layers and that foam and it's going to squish them together. So that foam will be very small, just like fabric. It'll be easier to sew the seams together if you do this. And do it on all of your pieces. Now at this point you can put any decorative things that you want on it. You could add pockets. My Bernina does a beautiful little decorative bow stitch, and I'm going to put this on the front. So what you want to do is completely decorate your pieces first before you're going to put them together. So my cover is going to be like this. This will be the front because I want a little band, and in the back I have added a pocket. So all of my pieces are now put together the way that I would like them. Next, we need to make some binding so that we can sew this together. To make the binding, cut a 2-inch strip the width of the fabric and then take it and press it wrong sides together. And you're going to sew this onto the bottom of the cover. So the part that is not going to be sewn along here, this needs to be sewn on. Place your 2-inch binding along the edge and stitch a 1/4 inch. And when it's been sewn on a 1/4 inch, you're going to be able to take this and wrap it around to the back. And what you have done is you've covered the raw seam. Now you can hand stitch this or machine stitch it. So the bottoms are complete. The next thing is to take 2 more binding strips and sew them on each end and leave a little bit to hang over on each side. However, this time you're not going to take them and fold them over. Leave them flat so you see all the raw edges. The binding is on, but it has not been folded over. Leave it into the seam. The reason is you will need to sew the sides on. After you sew the sides on, you'll be able to use the binding to cover the raw seams. So make sure you have your sides in the right direction so that the front is in the front and the back is in the back. And that is where the notes on your template are going to come in handy. So you're going to match the backs together because then after that binding is going to cover that seam. I like to sew both of the front sides on first. And with that extra piece that was hanging over, match up the seams on both sides and then take that extra piece and just roll it over and stitch down and stop just before you have that edge that you need to go around. So part of the sides are sewn on. Now you can turn it around and you're going to do the same thing for a little bit on both of the other sides. So you're not sewing this part, just both those little edges. Match your raw edge and match the bottom, fold it over and stitch down just a couple of inches. So now you have a nice edge all the way around the bottom. And by folding that over, when you go to stitch that binding down, it's going to cover all of the raw edges. So now you have this flap on each side, and you will need to just continue to stitch down all the way. And now that the sides are sewn on, you will be able to take the binding, you'll be able to roll it over and hand stitch it down. So regardless if you make a small one or a large one, the way you do it is the same. You need to make that template for the side. You need the length and then that measurement around there, and those are the only measurements you need. The rest is up to your imagination on how you want to decorate your cover. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.